Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to today's Initium session. I am thrilled to present our distinguished guest, Mr. Sujato Datta, a debating expert currently pursuing his Master of Arts in the esteemed Global Studies program at the Albert Ludwigs University of Freiburg. Mr. Datta was a finalist in the Colloquium 2018 and a joint speaker. He also chaired the semifinals at the Uthan Asian Parliamentary Debate 2020 and was a panelist at the Competitive Dialogue Debate Tournament in 2020. What sets Mr. Datta apart extends beyond the boundaries of academia. Alongside his commendable pursuits in policy research and social work, he shines as a debater and a debate trainer. Actively engaged in the debating clubs at his university, he not only demonstrates a commitment to intellectual discourse, but also serves as a mentor, shaping the next generation of debaters. He combines theoretical depth with the practical skills needed for the effective discourse. He's not merely a student, but a dedicated seeker of global perspectives. His academic journey encompasses diverse modules from international relations to culture anthropology, reflecting his profound dedication to understanding the world from multiple angles. A graduate of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Mr. Datta is more than a distinguished student. He is a research specialist navigating the intersections of global issues and societal changes. As we move forward to the session, I invite you to actively engage, pose your questions, and tap into the wealth of knowledge and experience that Mr. Sujato Datta, a true intellectual dynamo and distinguished debater, brings to our virtual stage today. Over to you, Mr. Datta.
Hello everyone, am I audible and am I visible? Can anyone just give me a thumbs up or just write in the chat box? If it's not the case, if anyone can't hear me, just feel free to drop a text in the chat box or anything. Okay, so nice to see you all. The thing that I'm going to do here is kind of try to have an interactive workshop so that, well, it's a long time so that you don't get bored. And I feel that kind of helps the activity towards which we are preparing, which is debating as a whole. Before I start the session, I also wanted to know the kind of experience that you guys have in British parliamentary debating or any sort of parliamentary debating in general. During my workshop, whenever I'm asking a question, you can just raise your hand and then I can ask you to unmute yourself, and if you have permission to go ahead and answer the question or ask a question if you feel like. So how many of you do have an experience with parliamentary debating or British parliamentary debating more specifically, or debating in general? I cannot see all of you. I think I can see one couple. Can you guys write in the chat box? Just I think there's an option to raise hand and stuff. One, two. Okay. Anyway, so I'm guessing. Okay, great. So I'm guessing some of you are familiar with it, but some of you are quite new to the format and might have done other parliamentary debating. So what I'm going to do in this workshop is a very simple thing. I feel that once you start debating, you always run a risk of kind of over theorizing stuff, of thinking more about where stuff lies principally, and about arguing the kind of principles that you as a young individual are pushed to argue. While there is nothing wrong with that, the problem with this is what it becomes is that in most debates, which are close debates, which you are not winning or losing by, let's say, a huge qualitative gap, then the debate becomes very abstract and very difficult for the person who is judging to actually judge on, because you have spent most of your time arguing abstract principles. So the purpose of this workshop is essentially to ensure that that doesn't happen, and you can kind of ground your arguments in the principles which further help you. So again, advice number one, of course, right off the bat, is that I always think, though it depends from person to person, but I always think, since in British parliamentary debate, you have got primarily 2 speaker slots in your team, I always think it's more important to have, let's say, 2 principles and explain them in depth than have 4 or 5 principles and just leave everything untouched, because no matter where you are positioned in the British parliamentary debate, whether you're opening government, opening opposition, or closing government, or closing opposition, you always have an opening half or closing half coming after you. So it's better to have a more detailed case than a more stretched out case, so that your case is watertight and you still can win points on that scale. So that being said, let's start off from principles, and I will kind of use a motion to talk about this. And I've very deliberately not prepared a presentation because I thought the interactive way to do is the right thing. I mean, personally, I always get pretty tired of looking at blocks of text on slides. So anyway, so talking of principles, the first two positions in debating in British parliamentary, which I feel are effectively regarding principles, are of course the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition positions. So what happens in these two positions? So the Prime Minister is the first speaker from the opening government, and they open the whole debate. So what they essentially have to do is explain, of course, that their case stands on, let's say, principle A and principle B. So let's take a motion to understand this. If the motion is that this House believes that standardized tests do more harm than good, I will type it out in the chat box so that everyone has that. Yeah, should be in the chat box. So when you're looking at a motion like this and you go ahead and, let's say, go ahead as Prime Minister, you then need to explain that what is the abstract or theoretical or principled claim from which you are going ahead and making your case on. So there can be two principled level arguments in this motion that standardized tests do more harm than good. First argument is that what is the intention or aim of a functioning education system? Why is this principle important? Now, I feel that this principle is important because there are two very value-based words in the whole motion that do more harm than good, which is why you need the principle as well to explain on what basis your definition of good or your definition of harm stands. So in order to give an answer to that question, you need to ask that what is the aim of this education system in which standardized tests happen, and if it fulfills the aim, then it's necessarily it is doing good. If it's not fulfilling the aim, or if it's essentially like going down on the aim, it's doing more harm. So that is a principal argument that you can make if you're supporting the fact that standardized tests do more harm than good. I think. Right. Can everyone hear me? I think there's a problem which is in the chat box. Some people are writing that they cannot hear me properly. Okay. There's a lag in the audio that is probably due to the internet connection. So. Yeah, so the lag will probably be due to internet connection. I don't see a way around that very efficiently right now. But yeah, if it's absolutely not clear, then like, can someone unmute and tell me if it's like absolutely not clear? And you
Okay, so Sujato, actually, the audio is clear, but I think it's not exactly very clear. So I think you can continue. I think in the meanwhile, it'll be better while the session goes on. So just try. You can continue with the session. I think,
Okay,
we'll try to sort this out. You can continue with the time.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So anyway, so where I was saying that what are the aims of this education system is what you necessarily need to ask to kind of understand what you mean by good or what you mean by harm. However, merely arguing that, let's say, the aim of this education system is to produce creative individuals, for example, hypothetically, that is not enough. Or it can be anything like, okay, perfect. And there can be anything like creative individuals, or if you want this, like the education system wants to produce talented individuals. or individuals adept at a certain skill set in society. So, however, you then have to base your principle on a very practical ground. The practical ground being, why should that be important? And why should, like, if your education system is like aiming to create creative individuals, why is that more important than creating people who are more suited to working regular jobs? The moment that this question comes, there is a problem. The problem is that now you need to explain the context. So, like, where is this debate happening? What are the needs of that society? Which kind of people populate this society? So on and so forth. So once you ask this question, that is the only way where you will get an answer to this question, that why is churning out creative individuals more important in this scenario than churning out people who are very well adept at, let's say, soft skills, for example, or very well adept at doing certain specific jobs or meeting certain specific requirements in this society, or vice versa, if you want to prove, which will now allow you to justify that this is the principle towards which your education system is aiming, and hence that is the principle you're running on. So if you noted in this motion, simply on its principle, it does not stand. Why does it not stand? And this is the bottom line advice that we give to all young debaters. We have faced it ourselves as well, and have always like made this mistake a lot of times, which is that do not implicitly assume that there is anything value neutrally good or value neutrally bad in the debate. By which I mean that do not uncritically assume that, okay, since this is coming from a certain institution, the judiciary is good, or things like that politicians are corrupt. While these are statements which may be values or opinion, but for them to hold sway in a logical debate, you also have to kind of explain, like, why are these important, or why are this like not a problem in this debate, or why they are a problem in the debate. I will wait a second. In case the audio still lags, I will make an attempt again to kind of reconnect into the meeting. I'll pass on the mic to
Yes, so please just try to reconnect. Okay, so hi guys, how are you all doing? I'm sure you all are doing amazing. Yesterday, I saw you guys all in the session. You were very enthusiastic about whatever was being told in the session, and definitely I met you all in the meme and motion as well. So Tatu will be coming back in max 2 minutes. So up until then, I'm sure you guys are having an amazing experience up until now with Initium. We've been circulating newsletters. We've been doing everything to keep you engaged. And trust me, there are a lot, many things coming your way that will keep you very, very engaged. So how are you guys doing? Like, are you guys finding Initium interesting? So can I know, Aditi, how are you finding Initium? If you would like to elaborate on the same, how are you finding it so far? Okay, I think Aditi Patil, I was referring to you. Can you please share your experience? How was meme in motion for you?
Meme and motion has been very exciting for me, and thanks to the chair that they gave me a lot of chances to speak. But then again, it was very interesting and a very creative idea for a warm up for us, because we all have this confidence lag when you're starting suddenly. So having this warm up thing is very necessary, and I think it's a very good idea.
Thank you so much. And I definitely remember what all you said. That was amazing. Like I had to make so many, like, it was really great, the way you elaborated, and the fact that you were so enthusiastic, you wanted to go again and again. So what about Thomas, RJM Thomas? How was your experience so far?
Yeah, really amazing. I must say kudos to you for selecting like very controversial, fun topics. I mean, even for those who even for those who are not like for debating for the first time, it kind of brings out like our inner argumentative skills or inner debater. So you kind of like channeled that for us through, and like thank you so much for that. It was fun. Not really much of a competition, but rather like a fun platform.
Definitely. Yeah, and I remember your points. You were pretty, like you have a lot of facts with you. The way you, start to articulate your facts and present it in your argument, it's actually very great. And let's go to Yagyakrit. Again, one person who was very, very enthusiastic and wanted to talk about every meme. So Yagyakrit, how was your experience with meme in motion?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because memes are, like memes are basically my second source of knowledge after books, I would say. Like I get more knowledge from memes than I get from, classroom. So it was amazing for me. And basically, like the way you incorporated your topics into memes was also much better compared to what has been done in like previous debates, right? Like they try their best to match our expectations. It will be more modern, more Gen Z, but you guys were definitely up there in that.
Yes, so
Especially the session
yeah.
also yesterday. The session yesterday that was simply amazing. That was on another
Yes,
level.
exactly. So thank you so much, Yagyakrith. So now Sujato is back, and Sujato, you may continue now.
Yeah, is it better by any
Yes,
chance?
it is. It is better actually. So you may continue.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, it's really tough. So yeah, I'm pretty sure lost track quite a number of times. So I mean, the motion is still written out there in the chat. So I hope that stays as an anchor. So I kind of explained, if there's anyone who missed out really in the middle, kind of explained why it's still important to kind of base your principles on very practical grounds. So now let's make this a little more interactive. I'm pretty sure you have been hearing me well now and forth. So let's take a motion now. Let's keep the motion that we discussed aside for a while, and let's take this motion that this house believes that all political decisions should be taken on public referendum. I'm typing this out as well. Do all of you know here what we mean by a public referendum? Can anyone just raise their hand, maybe unmute themselves and anyone? I think there's an option to just raise your hand in the Zoom menu.
Yeah, so actually, we have Satvik and Neeti who have raised their hands. So I think we can start with Satvik Aravind.
Yeah, so I consider public referendum random like plebiscite, where the entire opinion of the population is taken into consideration by taking issues. So that's how the SS textbook defines that, plebiscite or public referendum.
Right. And someone else, I think, also raise their hands. You did?
Yeah, may I speak?
Yeah, sure.
So what basically I mean by public referendum is it is a type of democratic system that allows the citizens to decide about the important issues nation is facing. So it's an indirect democratic system.
Right. So a public referendum is essentially a plebiscite, and of course, it's a way to let citizens have like direct contributions or direct voicing of opinions on certain issues. Like in what we have in India is kind of an indirect democracy where we elect our representatives who then again go ahead and debate and discuss in the parliament. But what happens in so-called direct democracies are referendums or plebiscites. A referendum is something like, for example, when Scotland was asked to vote yes or no on whether it likes to stay in Britain or something, where all citizens of Scotland voted, that's a referendum instead of their representatives just taking the decision. That is a public referendum. So this motion essentially means that instead of having representatives choosing what's right for you or choosing what decisions to be taken, this house believes that all such decisions should be taken on a public referendum. Now, one thing to be noted about this motion is that when we say believe that, it is usually, there is no technical obstacle to it, but usually means a generalized case. So as, for example, as government or proposition, you can, but it's not really advised to argue that, okay, only big decisions will be taken on public referendum, because that is kind of the status quo that already exists. So that is not what you are trying to essentially address. So if all political decisions, let's say an act is passed or a law is passed, that is taken on a public referendum. So if you are government on this and you're going opening government, and if you're going prime minister, what are the things that you would like to highlight which are good about a public referendum, or why should a public referendum be the basis of political decisions? So anyone, again, just raise your hand, just unmute yourself and go ahead. You can just unmute yourself and answer this if you feel so.
Yeah, can I speak? I don't have an exact reason, but I have an example. Like, you know that farm laws bill was being passed and it had to be taken back due to widespread protests. So I think if a public referendum was taken before the bill was, pushed through the parliament, I think that would have been better because many lives and, economic damage could have been saved if that had been done. So that is my point. Ultimately, you could argue that it was taken back due to public referendum, due to public refusing to accept it. So in a way, that is what I think is, the importance of public referendum. Thank you.
Yeah, right. I think someone else also unmuted. Pranay, do you want to say something? Satvik, do you want to say something?
Yeah, agreeing to Yajnakrit, I would say that if I was going on as Prime Minister for this agenda, I would first of all say that entire resources that goes into protests for the situations that arise due to not having a public referendum will entirely be shifted into running the democracy, which is further establishing the idea of democracy in the country. So resource wastage is lost, and that resource can be invested. So that would be a primary thing around which my speech would be revolving around if I was giving a speech.
Right, perfect. So from what both of you say, see, these are primarily examples. So this is kind of the obstacle or impediment that becomes during the debate, that you often get either stuck on examples or principles. So the examples that you gave, for example, Yagakrit, you gave the example of they could have been prevented, right? That protests could have been prevented, and like you could have actually heard the citizens' opinion and acted beforehand. So what is the principle that comes forth from that? Or Satvik's example that the resources could have been better channelized into a more efficient functioning of discussion. What is the principle here then? That any democratic government should have a direct responsibility of upholding the citizens' values. Very simply, this is the principle that you get from that. So if we abstract all the examples, this is the common theme that you will have running through multiple examples, which is why that instead of taking parliamentary decisions through representatives, this is why you should have public referendums. Now, okay, fine. You argue that principally you should have a direct commitment to citizens in a democracy. Now, the immediate question that comes to this argument is that why do you not think that elected representatives are equally accountable or committed to upholding citizens' opinions? This is the second point that needs to be answered in your Prime Minister's speech. So again, I will ask any one of you if you can just unmute yourself.
Like, won't sorry for speaking again, but no, like what happened in like this previous debate I was in, just to answer your question, even if the views of the members of the like for and against team were differing, like for team, if the leader passed for a motion, then everyone automatically agreed. So I think you put all the blame on the leader, like you have the prime minister and leader of the opposition. So if they are passing for any motion, even though the members of those side will not agree, I think they go along with the flow. Ki, yeah, our leader is saying this, so we do that. So that's why I think we do not hold them accountable for passing of a motion. Thank you.
Yeah, right. And anyone else?
Agreeing with Yagakrit, I would say that instead of acting in a democracy in a parliament, it rather goes into power politics or politics of parties. So instead of people actually talking on issues, they're rather talking on what their political party talks on. So acting through a representative is kind of like a middleman in an economic exchange. So always that middleman is a person who is both benefiting from the system and as well as like oppressing the others. So in the same way here, political leaders act in the same way. So and entering into a public referendum completely would avoid that middleman in between.
Right. Anyone else who has not spoken before and just wants to have a go at the question?
May I speak?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So there are certain cases, like in democracies, like for example, if we talk about India, having a political referendum is something like a utopian vision. Yeah, people are 140 crore. When our first election was happening, the world questioned us if we would be able to have a particular, general election with such a huge amount of population who is illiterate and not able to understand various things with various perspectives. So having a political referendum for country like these is something huge, and that's the only reason we have representative democracy.
Okay. Fair enough. So I'm going to kind of try. Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, every coin has two sides. I agree with Dia also, and I also agree with Satvik and Yagikrit's points. But I think we elect the leaders, so leaders are accountable more. So whatever
Mhm.
leaders do is basically the action of us. I do agree that this is a very impractical idea, and it is not at all applied in the parliament, because everything in parliament is selfish most of the times, because people usually think of their party winning rather than thinking about the people. But then again, they will not win the next election unless they support the likes of the people, so they will again go back to the people anyways. So basically every coin has its two sides. So we need to also agree that political leaders are selfish, but again we have to agree that they do work for people.
Right. So I'm gonna kind of try to bring together what all of you said and see and point out where the problems are and well, it's where the positive sides are as well. So the two things that I get from all four of you are that firstly, that there is a disconnect between representatives and the people in general in Indian politics. That is one thing. And the second thing is that politicians are also corrupt and more kind of committed to party ideology than kind of holistic approach to citizens' arguments. Now, these two are valid arguments, but there is a problem with this argument. The problem with this argument, or the argument that okay, that they will be removed in the next elections if they don't cater to the citizens' right. The problem with these arguments is that these are what we call principled arguments, which is kind of the point of this whole workshop. That when you say that politicians are corrupt and politicians are selfish, and that is why you should have public referendum in the first place, then the opposition immediately asks you, then how is it that laws have been passed for more than 70 years now, and it is not like you cannot absolutely take the burden as government to prove that okay, no laws have worked since the dawn of independence. That is a huge burden to take. You cannot fulfill that. So the opposition immediately asks you that how has laws worked for so long and so forth. And secondly, you see, in this principle, you are making a huge assumption that the problems that exist in like parliamentary representation do not at all exist in public referendum. That is also a very hard claim to back up because public referendums can be manipulated. There are very well grounded examples of the same. This is going to be the opposition case to your you. So are you all of you noticing what is the problem if you simply try to talk your case on principle? You start assuming a lot of things. Now the moment you try and say that okay, government is corrupt and public referendum is not, you need to think to the next level and answer this question. This is what in debating language we call preempting, knowing beforehand that what the argument from the opposition is likely to be, and also arguing that the nitty-gritties of it. Why is a public referendum more likely to be representative? Why can it not be manipulated instead of making like kind of these value judgments? So one way to go about this is, I think it was Dia who argued that there is an immense population in India. So you see, you can use that argument to fulfill this gap in principle. You can go ahead and argue that no matter that politicians are good or bad, or public referendum, like people who are organizing public referendums are corrupt or not, no matter what, there is an insurmountable material logical problem, which is that we have way too much manpower to be catered to according to the ratio we have in terms of representatives. See, that's a practical reason. Now your principle that this is why parliamentary representation does not work is backed up. I am not saying that corruption is not an issue, that like all kinds of things that are up and wrong in the parliament are not an issue. I'm just saying that in order to argue those issues, you need to ground them better in this way. Because if I'm sitting as a judge in an room and I'm an average newspaper reader and I'm supposed to be neutral and open to all opinions, you have to convince me why some things are necessarily bad or some things are necessarily good. Okay, so that is a practical way of kind of bridging your principles into practice. That look, this is a practical problem that exists, which is why principally we feel that public referendums are the best way to reach so many people in the first place. However, there is also kind of the other angle to it. The other angle could be, as Yagakrit argued, that okay, we are only holding like kind of the people who are like representatives responsible. We are not holding other actors equally accountable since they are not framing the law. That could also be a practical argument to kind of go ahead with your principle that if you organize a public referendum, more people will be accountable and more people now are involved in the whole process and can be questioned. But there is a problem here. Again, there is an assumption that we are all making. The assumption is that you live in a country or society or democratic setup, whichever word you want to use, the main aim of which is the maximization of democracy. This is something you should mention at the start of your speech if you're a government and this is your motion, because this prevents the judge from thinking that you are assuming certain things. So to sum it up, there are three ways of doing this in government side, of bridging principles and practice. Firstly, always, this is the safest way, and I'm telling you a basic structure. You can write it down, and then you can see what works for you. Of course, different things work for different people, as I said. But of course, you can say this. You start off your prime minister's speech by the first thing, which is context. What do you include in context? In context, you say, where is the debate taking place? For example, if you are setting the context for this debate, let's say since we discussed mostly about India, we would say India, that this debate is happening in India. Or for example, if there is a more complex case that you have, which you will slowly develop once you start debating regularly. If you have a more complex case, you would like to probably contextualize this debate in somewhere like United States, where federal politics are much more contested and federal interests are much differently organized in the system, so on and so forth. Where is this happening? It is very important when this is happening, because when certain things matter is very important. See, the moment Yagakrit mentioned farm laws, it gives you an idea of the time, because every time has certain characteristics to it, which is why certain things matter more. So you can say that this is a time period of a majoritarian government, let's say after quite a long time in India's electoral democracy, where we had coalition parties. We are having a majoritarian government after a long time. The second thing that you can also argue is that this is a time where we are seeing crisis of democracy throughout the world, not only in India. There's a pandemic which has just happened. Ways of interacting with the society have evolved, morphed, so on and so forth. These are things you use as context to convince the judge that you are holding your argument in a certain framework, in a certain context, because all arguments don't necessarily work everywhere. That is the context. The second thing that you argue is your principle. That, okay, since the context is India, our aim is to maximize democracy. So the principle essentially is that we believe that governments should be directly committed to the voice of the citizens and what they are trying to uphold. This is a principle. I'm talking right now about one principle. You can have multiple principles in your speech. Slowly, as you start doing debates regularly, it can become a normal thing. But if this is your first principle, then immediately you talk about how you plan to mechanize this. By mechanize, you mean how we plan to implement this principle. What else do you plan to do? Then you say that we need to have a public referendum because the public referendum provides so and so benefits. Telling the judge that the public referendum provides so and so benefits is very important, because that will allow your second speaker to also explain that why certain bad things that happen in parliamentary, let's say representative democracy, do not happen in the public referendum. That is what in debating language we call a counterfactual. The assumption that we were all making that public referendums are always better than corrupt politicians is an assumption that you will need to have an explanation for, or actually kind of explain that even if they are both corrupt, this is why objectively public referendum is a better option. Only then your principle stands. So what do you have now? You have three parts of your speech, a very basic part on which you can expand. The first part is the context. Where is the debate happening in India? At what time? What are the conditions? The second part is principle. What is the need of the hour? The need of the hour aside, government, you believe, is to maximize democracy by reaching the largest number of population that you can. That is not happening in the present scenario because you say that you provide the problem that maybe the population is too large, or maybe there are way too many interests to be represented. Then how do you plan to address this, which is the counterfactual? You talk about the public referendum, how you plan to organize the public referendum. Is it on a federal level, state by state? Is it on a national level? What is the role of the government related to this? Can the government reject it? Does the government have to accept it? These are details which are very important, and you should not leave out any of them, because then your principle becomes unclear. And then you go ahead and tell them that this is why, even of certain value, like kind of conditions, they're objectively better. These are parts that you definitely should have in your government side speech on the prime minister, or even if you go as the deputy prime minister. And these are the basic structures till now. If anyone has any question till now about the government side, you can just ask me, raise your hand up. I'll also make sure to maybe through Professor Bob or Mayank, anyone, I can send. I have a file of the multiple videos on YouTube about kind of contextualization and principles, and I have them kind of organized in a log book, but they're also freely available. So maybe I can send a link, or we'll see how that works out. Yeah.
Bhaiya, sir, what can I call you?
Just anything. You can call me Bhaiya. It's fine. It's absolutely
Bhaiya is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bhaiya, in my previous competition, in the end, there was this question posed to us from the ruling government, and that question was actually in favor of the people. It was actually beneficial for the, what do we say, the masses. And the guy who posed the question, he was ridiculed by his team, by the rest of his ruling government. That why did you pose such a question? Because that led to me giving, both of us having a what do you call it, a sportsman moment. We appreciated each other for taking the masses interest in first. So when we are posing questions to each other in the parliament, in the end, then do you think it is best to take our side only, or as you said, the public referendum, the public's interest we should include in our questions, because that may result in conflict with our teammates?
Definitely, but the idea in such a debate is there are two ways to answer this. Firstly, the idea in this debate is that when you say, is it in our own interest, is it in the public's interest? So if there is necessarily a motion, it kind of assumes the position that you are in, and regardless of which side you are on in this motion, the interest is of course that of the larger public. The point that I will of course advise you is that when you're going in a team, you should always have a strategy set out. Of course, even if you're arguing opposition and you have a very clever way of framing a particular argument, it definitely should not look like you're framing an argument which says that you should take away people's human rights or give them less democracy. It definitely shouldn't sound like that. In fact, it's not ethically advised, but definitely I have seen in top level debating, there are a lot of people where, let's say, the motion is really tough and it needs you to put forward a kind of stricter totalitarian case. There is a way to argue that as well, but that comes with expertise, of course, and we kind of how you can frame the case. And see, then it matters where the debate is happening, what are the interests of those people. Then everything starts mattering, and every question needs an answer. So So that's kind of like how to answer your question. And again, non-debating
you.
advice.
Like I
not-
understand the question wasn't very specific because
Yeah.
it is hard to imagine yourself in such a scenario actually. So it just happened. So I wanted to be prepared. That's why I asked you. Thank you. But your answer did clear something. So thank you.
I do have a doubt also that when you're like situational counter arguing the prime minister or the government, when you're from the opposition side, so already you said to give the prime minister should give a context. So if say
Yes.
now Yagnakrit gave me an example of farm laws, and now I need to counter argue from the opposition side. So
Right.
when I'm taking like from the same time frame, I'm taking up
Mm-hmm.
situational examples like let's say the pension scheme that was introduced by the UPA government but was passed by the BJP government, and then it
Right.
reverted back when the Congress came back in power in the states. So
Right.
if I'm taking a situational example and critiquing the example given by the government side, is it wrong because you told me to focus more on the principle rather than the example?
No, definitely not. What I'm trying to say is there has to be definitely a healthy balance, and it's like what I feel more important is the kind of structure that you use in your speech. So, for example, your speech, instead of being, let's say, one principle and three examples of that, or three examples tied by one principle, your speech should have, let's say, one principle and one example. However, like if we are taking your scenario and you say that, okay, I like if I'm understanding your question correctly. So if I am the when proposing this motion and I say, okay, farm laws happened, so we need to have public referendum. But then you come up as opposition and then say, okay, the same context as Pension Act, which also happened and then got repealed. And then happened again. So what is kind of the point? In a debating language, if I was the judge, there's a technical term for this. The technical term is wash. We say an argument is a wash when that argument cannot be credited to either side, either because both contextualizations or arguments are equally valuable, or because neither of them are valuable enough. So if you tell me that farm bills are an important context, and if the opposition comes to me and kind of, instead of engaging on the government's principles, just tells me that, okay, we agree with your principles, but your context also has pension scheme, that argument to me is a wash because both are equally important contextualizations. But in this wash or in this tie kind of, can the opposition's argument displace the government's principle that our aim in a democratic country is to maximize the reach of democracy? No. So since this argument is a wash, then government's principle stands. So your principle is of course important as well, but it needs to be in order to avoid a wash and have a clear win on your side. You should also think of a proper way to kind of explain this way. Or even if this is a wash, you can explain why the farm law crisis are kind of the farm law crisis tells us more about the flaws of representative democracy than the pension scheme actually goes ahead and does. So on and so forth. Of course, in both scenarios, you can argue about other interests. In farm laws, we saw a lot of pressure groups, non-governmental interests, so on and so forth. In pension scheme as well. Even in other reforms like so-called the civil code, you will see activism. One rank, one pension, you will see activism. So of course, you should take all actors into consideration and then try to kind of back up your principles on explaining why certain actors are more important, let's say, or less important, or equally important. That's the way. I would like to talk about a little bit about what we could also argue on the opposition side. But before that, I would like to call last year's winner, Satvik, to also share his experience of what it has been to kind of be in this debating, his experience of what it felt to argue well, know well, and also win the debates. So what was your whole experience like, if you would kindly tell us?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, for everyone who does not know, I participated last year and it was extremely fun, I must say that. Like it was more of socializing.
Satvik, I'm going to butt in for a minute. Okay. Yeah. So guys, I mean, we really haven't given Satvik a proper introduction. Satvik was the winner of FNF 2022. Okay, he's from the Reliance Foundation School at Surat, and he did, I don't know how many rounds, right, Satvik? Like so many rounds, and he did a tremendous job. So thank you, Satvik. He's a terrific debater, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sorry, Sujato and Satvik, but I just had to applaud Satvik for his fantastic performance. Okay, so guys, here on Satvik has lots to tell you all. Yeah.
The first thing that I would like to tell is that team chemistry matters a lot. I have seen very good teams get eliminated in the pre-quarters or the quarters. Just I was myself shocked that how could that team get eliminated, because there was no chemistry between the two people who were speaking. The Prime Minister spoke an independent speech, the Deputy Prime Minister gave another independent speech. Both do not tie in between. So it's very easily to pinpoint them and argument back to be both the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, because they are not related in a team as here when I'm counter arguing. So first thing I would like to say is, whoever your partner with whom you are going to debate is, you have to have frequent debates whenever you're traveling to the campus or whenever you get time. You keep on understanding what is the plus point of the one team person and what's the plus point of the other team person. Like you get hardly 30 minutes before the debate, you get to know whether you are whichever side of the four teams, which team you are. And sometimes, like when I was with my senior, she's now in college, so she used to give excellent first speeches and I would give excellent deputy speeches, but unless we were in the closing government or the closing opposition, I did not know how to give a closing argument speech. So when in the semi-finals, when we got closing government, I told her to give the last speech, because if I gave it, I would have spoiled the speech entirely and got us eliminated. So understanding the plus points of your teammate, understanding the negative points of yourself is necessary to participate in a team argument, in a team debate. When it's alone, it's fine. You did the you took the chance, you suffer the consequences, but in team you cannot afford that. Going about the topics, the wonderful topics that Vijaybhoomi gave us during the FNF event, starting from like base level concepts like these, to going up to imaginative debates about completely weird situations like two children being born together in a hospital, one from a rich family. Like I just remember it very clearly from the final speech. It was about two children being born in the same hospital from a rich family and a poor family, both diagnosed with the same disease. The rich family kid dies, and the house is the doctor, and he has been given a choice to swap between the dead rich child and the alive poor child. And we are debating whether this should be done or not, because the disease that the child has is a terminal disease. So then that debate, the extreme ethicalities of things that a doctor should or should not do, and those debates were excellent. I think I have never participated after that in that good a topic or a discussion on ethics, and it really makes you think and all. So I would just tell you that you get 30 minutes of preparation time to prepare, right? After being given the topic, I think it's 30. In finals you get 1 hour, but whatever time period that you're getting, utilize it not to write your own speech, but to understand what you as a team have understood or inferred from the piece of paper that they've given you about the topic. What did you infer? What did you miss out from the topic? What is your partner going to speak on? What are you going to speak on? How are you going to tie in between them? Like when I would give a deputy prime minister speech, I would start up with a quote from my prime minister's speech, so as to show that I'm being connected to the prime minister. The final speech, I start off by saying that it's not where you are born, it's what you do that matters. My prime minister said that, I agree with it, and here's my points on the same topic. So even the judge understands that, okay, you are the same team guy and you're going to speak on it. So it really helps you understand that team cohesion that's there. And so use that 30 minutes that you get, you have to utilize, you have to churn out everything from those 30 minutes. Writing speech, I still have the notebook. I don't know why, but I still have the notebook that Vijaybhoomi gave me to write down my points. It's still scattered points here and there. Don't write entire arguments. Write down the points. I still remember Harsh sir, the dean of law school, telling my teammate not to look into the paper too much, because then that shows that you're not you're not confident with your arguments. Keep it in your brain, that sequence of arguments. If you link them, you can understand the sequence yourself when you're giving an on-the-spot speech. Focus less on, like, we got a lot of POIs. I was targeted with POIs, all the like points of information, that is questions raised in the BPT format. So when I got a lot of POIs, don't put them towards the end, or don't take too much of them, because that sways you away from your purpose, which is giving a speech. So don't do that. Don't take too many POIs. I did that mistake in the quarters. I took too many POIs and I could not give a closing argument to my speech. So don't do that. take arguments, pinpoint them, attack them if possible, obliterate their arguments whenever possible. Regarding the topics, because you're not giving anything to research on once the topic is given, you cannot go on factual piece of information because not everyone is a walking encyclopedia. I don't know 16% or 17% growth is there in the economy or whatever. I don't know that. So don't stick. I would rather say stick to like Sir said, stick to that principal argument that you are supporting instead of stating statistics from your examples. No, I don't think anyone would, like, even if you say that, what's the point? How do I counter argue it? There's nothing that can be said to in reply to a fact. So you are not giving an argument, you're just reading out a newspaper article to the everyone sitting there on the stage. So give out principalistic arguments to your opinion and then push out your opinion in a way that it's the only thing, it's the ultimate truth that you're talking on, and in a way that like you are the Krishna on the stage, and what you're saying out is Bhagavad Gita. There is no counter arguments to what you're saying. You are saying the ultimate truth. If you talk in that way, I don't think anyone is there to sit there and counter argue. Yes, sometimes topics like these ethicalistic arguments where it's really hard to talk on the other show. I was fortunate I got to support that the change should not be done. The opposition side, the second prize winners, they did an excellent job going against ethics and saying the child should be swapped. And they gave excellent arguments. So it's not that there is only one side that's correct in a debate. It's always two sides. Sometimes the debates, when you read out the argument, it's like it's a one-sided debate. It's never a one-sided debate. If you can give arguments in a way that you can convince the masses. I personally talk in a way that I want to convince not only the judge who's listening, of course, the judge is giving me marks, but I also want to see that entire 300-seater audience that is there in that AC hall listening to me. I want them to understand and resonate with what I'm talking on, because if the audience understands it, the judge understands it too. That's why most people say that I speak like a politician. I don't know why they say it, but talk in a way a politician does, because after all, at the end of the day, we all blindly vote for them, right? And of course, we want a public referendum. I and Yajñakrit agree to that, but some people don't. So at the end of the day, talk in a way that everyone there believes in your ultimate truth, and that ends the debate then and there, and you have won it at that moment. Thank you, ma'am.
Was very well said, Satvik, and it was really great for you to share your experience and also the important points that you mentioned. Thank you so much, Satvik. And Sujato, it was a really informative session, and I'm sure all the participants got a lot of insights from this session. What you said, it was very, very informative, and I'm sure the participants are taking a lot of information home, and it was definitely very, very intellectually gaining for all of us. So thank you so much for being here today, and it was really great to have you at Initium.
Sujata, thank you so much. Gosh, I think we are learning every day with all of you all. Who knew that there can be so many sides to one coin, isn't it? And I think that's what we will appreciate at the end of it all, that there's no wrong and right. It's just the way you put your point across, and your style of argumentation is more important. And I'm glad that Satvik spoke about not flooding the speech with a whole bunch of stats and numbers, and really using your own style of persuasion. And I think that's really important. So thank you so much, Sujato. Right. So guys, just a couple of announcements that I'd like to make, since quite a few of you are still there. So you know that our prelims are on the 14th and the 15th, right? We've kept 2 days aside, but we've been getting a lot of requests for the prelims to be I mean, most schools are requesting for the 14th. So as of now, we are really planning to complete the prelims on the 14th. We're planning to do 2 rounds. Okay, so we'll begin, I believe the India-Pakistan match is there in the afternoon. So we really like to keep the afternoon free for all of you all. So we'll start early. So we were thinking that the first round could be from 9 to 10:15, and then, like a 15-minute gap, and maybe 10:30 or 10:45, we will begin the second round. Okay, I hope that works for everyone. Right? In case if you have an issue, do let us know. Okay, but as of now, the plan is to finish both rounds on the 14th. That's what we've kind of decided, because most schools are already messaging us, the teachers are writing to us, and we just thought it would just make sense. Okay, but for whatever reason, if you have an exam on the 14th, or if you have a certain issue, I would request you to privately message, the Mayank and Aditya, the people who've been in touch with you. If you could do that, we'll absolutely address it. Okay, and topics would be declared. These motions would be declared on Friday morning. I think the situation that Satvik was talking about, the 30 minutes before, is once you come to our campus, if you make it through the pre-quarters and you're in our campus for the leadership retreat, we're talking about that situation where the topics are pretty much given on the spot. Okay, but of course, for the prelims and the pre-quarters, you're going to get 24 hours to prepare. I hope that makes sense, right? Okay, I think. Thank you, Sujato. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, Siddhi, I think you have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, tell me.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good
Ma'am, I
evening.
had a question that the motions, they will be released a day before the prelims, right?
Yeah. Yes. Friday
But
morning, you can expect them.
okay, ma'am, and the 10 topics that were given in the group, they were for the
Those are
research,
just,
right?
yeah. So, the topics will be related to one of those. See, there were about 10 topics that were discussed in G20, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So the motions will be related to what was
Those-
discussed in G20, because as you know, this is a Y20 event. We're going to, this is officially a Y20 event. So the motions will be related to all that was discussed at the G20. I hope that's clear. Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, Yagakrit, you have a question.
Yeah, ma'am. Good evening. And
Good
my
evening.
question was that, like recently, a new crisis has started, like the Israel and Hamas one. So, since it is live and every day new news is coming, will you include that as well? Matlab, I'm not asking for a direct answer.
I know,
I'm
I
asking
know.
for a
I know it
like sort of
sounds
clue.
very correct. No, we won't be including that at this point. I mean, we are really sticking to the G20 topics because that has a lot of, how do I say, there are a lot of religious overtures in that, and it can be quite controversial. I mean, of course, the debate is supposed to.
I wasn't thinking about that. I was actually concerned since it's live that I won't have
know.
maximum
No,
information.
no. It's
Yeah.
those, those G20 topics that we've declared.
Yeah.
So our motions will be really around that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes, Arya.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
I have a question, and I think Raghav has the same question too. He posted it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
We were told by way of an email that we would get the
topics
the
would be received 2 days before. Yeah. So, correct. Yeah. We did say that. So, we've got a whole bunch of topics which we've more or less finalized. I mean, if we kind of get them done, I mean, I'm hoping that by tomorrow morning, we'll have a bunch of finalized topics. And when I say finalized from our end, because, there were so many topics discussed in G20 that the gamut is much larger than we expected. We will definitely make all attempts to declare the topic by tomorrow evening. Okay? Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll make all attempts to do that. Yeah. Is that clear, everyone? Anything else? Anyone? No? Okay. So I'm so glad that you guys have been attending Initium. I hope you've been finding this useful. Okay. We have another session lined up by another really great debate expert and a coach tomorrow. So do take the time out and attend tomorrow's session. And of course, don't forget to miss Friday, where you'll meet Danika, a debate master, who will, of course, get into the nitty-gritties of the FNF rules. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So with that, let's call it a day. Yeah. Have a great evening, everyone, and see you tomorrow. Okay. Bye-bye. Mayank, you want to stick on for a minute? Yeah. Bob. Huh. Oh, Shalini ma'am's also there. Shalini, if you're there, Shalini, Nitish, can we just...
Hello?
Yeah, Shalini, can you just 2 minutes, we'll just wrap it up? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Everyone else can log out. Arya, Shaif. Okay, so I think it's just us, right? Okay. So Bob, listen, one thing that I just thought of is that we have juniors. Okay, so we'll have to, there will be, we had planned for 2 competitions, which we can't have. We don't have enough registrations for separately for juniors, but maybe we'll have to cluster the juniors and they'll have to compete against each other. So Mayank and Anushka are taking a call tonight on how many juniors have confirmed, how many have dropped out. But we will need to, you and I will need to differentiate the topics a little bit. We'll have to give slightly easier topics to the juniors, I feel. Right? And the second big question is what kind of prizes, how do we assess the juniors? That's going to be another dilemma.
Ma'am, how many juniors are there?
Mayank, I think we have about 16, I think. I feel 15 to 16 teams.
That number only. I'm right, Anushka, right? Yeah, that many juniors, right?
Yeah. 15 to 16 teams. There are 18, but I do know that 1 or 2 teams have not confirmed. So I'm anticipating about 15 teams. And we'll have to see how to do this. So I think this is something
So is it going to be like the juniors will have one set of rounds and later they would be put up with seniors, or they would be put up with seniors from the first round itself?
No, I will have to try and keep them exclusive, I feel, for the prelims, so that they stand a bit of a leg. Okay.
Yes,
And
yes. I think we should do that. Yes.
and if they're going to compete with the seniors, then we'll have to look at some scores at the end and give separate cash prizes for the best performing juniors.
And this will be informed to the juniors that
That's
be
what, so we
competing with the
need to decide that strategy, no? So when Mayank and Anushka make the final call tomorrow to all the participants, this will have to be communicated, because as of now, the juniors believe that there's a separate competition and that they also get that 85,000 and 45,000 cash prize. That's the belief they have, which we need to now, as an institution, we have to take a call before Mayank and Anushka make that call. Got it right, Bob? So
Yes,
today
ma'am.
at the judges meeting, we need to ask Danika, I mean, we need to take some input on how to configure it. Okay. That's what
Okay,
I
ma'am.
just thought I'd
We will
bring
do
that
that.
up. I
Yes.
just thought I'd bring that up front. Shalini and Nitish. Shalini ma'am, Nitish, you are there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think this internet going on and off, I don't know what is happening at that end, but Saturday morning we'll have to just make sure that they just cannot afford to go off.
Ma'am, we had a meeting today with the students also, with the IT team.
Huh.
So it was related to certain location. So I think they have checked it, and today I wish and I hope it doesn't go down. I mean, that's what we are hoping for. So guys, you're having your meetings from either different Agni rooms or from activity room. Yeah.
So Nitesh and Shalini, I'm kind of assuming that both of y'all will be there, right? On campus on Saturday? Yeah, while the debate is on, while the prelims are on, Shalini ma'am?
Okay, yeah, prelims. So ma'am, what timings? I mean,
Yeah, we will begin by 9. Okay. If
9
we
in the
begin
morning.
if we begin the first session by 9, we will be done. The round itself will get over by about 10:05 or 10:10. Okay. Then scoring feedback, easily it will become 10:30. Okay. The second round can begin at 10:45, and I anticipate that will also carry on till about 12:15. Okay. So that's that. So which means the mods and everybody by 8:30, everybody will have to, be logged in. They'll have to do a sound check, camera check, everything with the participants. Okay. Now the mods will have to take over from tomorrow. The moment the matchups are done, the mods have to then, coordinate, make sure that they get the Zoom link, whatever, the virtual background. All of that has to be sorted, and your swing debaters have to be available. Okay, Nitesh and Shalini ma'am, the swing debaters also, at least 2 teams of swings we need. Last minute dropout, because there are back-to-back rounds happening, there can be no delay.
So, ma'am, I have a suggestion for the team. With the team over here, we can have Mayank, and then we can have Manan. I mean, you know Manan. Manan knows you so well. Manan from IFIM College. So we are not giving any task to Manan as of yet, but I think there is one more Manav as well.
See, if you can keep Mayank out of it, that would be highly helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. So Nitesh, I had asked Ashwini Patro, who's there tomorrow on campus. He's the president. I told Ashwini to stay on for the weekend. Okay. If Ashwini can, he hasn't come back to me. I'll just follow up right now. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But we need 2 teams. We need 4 debaters.
Okay.
2 teams. So please just, Shalini ma'am, if you can also help out on this. Yeah.
Ma'am, I'll take care of it. I mean, I will not be able to confirm who's going to be what, but then I'll be taking care of coming from UG team also.
Yeah, just we need 4 standbys, which means 2 teams of 2 each. Okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so that needs to be done. And please, I would request both of you all to be there in the campus on Saturday. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will all be logged in. Of course, Bob, all of us are there, but physically we are not with you all, na? That's the issue. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Chalo, see you all at the judges meeting at 8:30, right?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. There is one thing I needed to ask. So I had a call with Blessy. So regarding the registration part is all done, but then teams have been sent the WhatsApp link and they have not reverted back. That's one thing. And second thing is who is sending the emails? Because Blessy is now, she's saying that emails are not being sent. So I mean that has this should not be done. So
we don't need an email right now.
Okay.
Forget the email right now. Just manage with WhatsApp. Make sure that the debate kit is with the new registrants.
Yeah. That is being sent to every one of them. But I was just checking. So do we need to send an email or something? Because we are so much in a lot of other work and then
no need. Forget the email right now. Just make physical calls and confirm with all the participants. Just make contact.
The one Loyola you were saying and the other Jamna Bai and all. So they have and they have been sent the link, but they have not joined with the WhatsApp group.
That's but then someone has to call them, na? Don't
And
leave it to
regarding
just
the payment also, they will do it tomorrow as per
No,
what
no,
the
Loyola has paid.
Jamna Bhai, I'm saying, ma'am.
Acha, okay, fine.
So
Jamna
they
Bhai
will
has
pay by
paid.
tomorrow.
Yeah, main thing is just make that call and just get the confirmation. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Anushka and Mayank, maybe tomorrow morning after I tell you about the junior strategy. Okay.
Sure, ma'am. So
Y'all
we'll
can
get together in the Tanika's one.
Yes. Y'all can start making the calls to all the seniors. Leave the juniors for a little later. Okay. The calls. By then, I'll have spoken to Kalpana and Kritika ma'am and given you some idea on the way the juniors will be treated. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ma'am, just one last thing. I'm so sorry. I'm just putting it. So regarding the bifurcation of the prices, so will it come? The clearance has to come from obviously Kalpana.
Yes. The only Kalpana and Kritika can take a call on what we're going to do with the juniors.
Yeah, because I think it should not be chaotic because they are in the assurance of having, separate prices and all that.
Yes. So Depi, just take a call. Let's just take a call on this.
I would request if you, by tomorrow itself, we are clear on this. So
but you have convocation tomorrow, Nitesh.
Oh yeah.
And they're not responding to my messages. So
No. We are actually very, they are very occupied that we can
so
see.
maybe you and Shalini will have to just meet Kalpana ma'am. Shalini ma'am.
Shalini ma'am, we can do that now.
Yeah, I've already texted Kalpana and Kritika saying, please, can we do a call on the strategy for juniors? But
tomorrow, ma'am, to be very honest, till 9 or 10 in the evening, they are not going to be, free at all.
If you can just catch Kalpana and Kritika for a minute and just take a decision on this. Okay. Yeah.
Shalini ma'am is very frequent to Kalpana ma'am regarding visits her school part, so maybe she can get a catch.
Yeah, but Shalini ma'am, you know what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like how do we treat the juniors?
Yeah.
I think you can take Mayank with you. If you find Mayank and Anushka know the whole scenario. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you can take both of them and just do a quick meeting with Kalpana and Kritika and then communicate that to all of us. That is assuming that I have not managed it.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay? Yeah. Chalo. See you all in the next link. Okay? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.